Chapter 2 of Mary's Grammar. Pronouns. Lesson 3. "Well, Mary," said her mother the following day, "what difficult lesson of grammar have you to learn now?" "Oh, my grammar is not half so difficult as it was, Mamma," replied Mary. "Or as you thought it was, my dear." "Yes, but indeed it was very difficult till you explained it to me. But let me see what comes after nouns." And she read, "A pronoun is a word put instead of a noun, to avoid the too frequent repetition of the same word." "I do not understand that at all, Mamma." "I will tell you a story that will make you understand it." Mary's eyes brightened at the thought of a story, but her mamma told her it would consist of only a few phrases to explain the pronoun. There was a little boy, and the boy climbed the tree, for the boy wanted to gather some cherries. So the boy laid hold of the branches, but the boy was so busy gathering the cherries that the boy lost his hold. So the boy fell to the ground, and the boy was very much hurt. "What a number of boys you have said, Mamma," observed Mary, "and yet there was but one." "And is it not tiresome," said her mother, "to hear the same sound so often repeated?" "Yes. Why do you not say the boy climbed the tree, and he gathered cherries, and he fell down and hurt himself?" "So then you think it would be better to put he instead of boy, to avoid the too frequent repetition of the noun?" "Oh, yes, now I understand it. Boy is a noun, and he is put instead of the boy, and that is, instead of a noun. So he must be a pronoun." "And are there a great many pronouns, Mamma?" "Not so many as there are nouns, for he will stand for other nouns besides a boy. Look at that man yonder. He is whistling to his dog. What is the word he put for there, Mary?" "Oh, he is put instead of man. The dog follows him, Mamma. He is very obedient. So then he will do for boy and man and dog too." "Very well. I am glad to see you understand it. Now can you tell me what pronoun you would use for that little girl with the blue bonnet that you see walking yonder?" "Oh, what a pretty blue bonnet she has, Mamma." "Well, you have said the pronoun without thinking of it." "Did I?" said Mary, surprised. "What was it?" "You said she has a very pretty blue bonnet." "Ah, so I did. She is the pronoun put instead of the little girl. And will not she do also for the lady who is with the little girl, just as he stands for both the man and the boy? Do you think she is her mamma?" "Whose mamma, my dear?" "The little girl's mamma." "And why did you say her mamma instead of the little girl's mamma?" "Oh, because it's much shorter and easier to say her than to say little girl over and over again." "Ah, now I guess why you smile, Mamma. Her must be a pronoun for the little girl as well as she. So then there is more than one pronoun for the little girl?" "Yes," replied her mother, "there is more than one pronoun for one noun. But then, on the other hand, the same pronoun will stand for a great many nouns. Yes, as he stands for man and boy and dog, and she stands for both lady and little girl. You said just now, 'I am very hungry.' Who does I mean?" "It means me, Mamma." "And who does me mean?" "Why, your little Mary, you know, Mamma." Well then, I and me are both pronouns which you say instead of Mary when you speak of yourself. But little Sophie does not know yet what pronouns mean, and she says, "Give Sophie some bread. Sophie is very hungry." "Ah, so she does," said Mary, "because she has not learned grammar." "But you used pronouns before you learnt grammar, Mary." Mary was a little puzzled to know how she could use pronouns without having learnt them. At length she said, "I knew what I and me and she and her and him meant, though I did not know that they were pronouns, and that they were used instead of nouns." Well, Sophie does not even know what I and me and she and her and him mean, so she does not use pronouns yet. "And when will you teach her, Mamma?" "She will learn it as you did. By hearing pronouns frequently repeated, she will at last find out what they mean. Now tell me, when I speak to you, what do I say instead of Mary?" "You say 'dear child' sometimes." "And do I not often say 'you'? I say, 'Are you tired of walking? Will you sit down?' So when you speak to another person, the pronoun 'you' is used. But when we talked about the little girl with the blue bonnet, we said 'she,' not 'you,' because we talked of her. We did not speak to her. If we had spoken to her, we might have said, 'You have a very pretty bonnet. Is that lady your mamma?' Now, Mary, can you find out a pronoun that will stand for both the little girl and the lady at the same time?" "Oh, no, Mamma. That must be very difficult, for the lady is a great woman and the little girl is quite a child. They are so different that I cannot conceive how the same pronoun can stand for them both." "Them both," repeated her mother. "Who do you mean by them?" "I mean the lady and the little girl." "Oh, dear, them is a pronoun for them both, and I said it without knowing it." "Look, Mary, they are just going out of sight, so we can see them no longer." And she laid an emphasis on they and them to show that those two words were pronouns. "How funny it is, Mamma," said Mary, "that one pronoun should stand for two nouns at once. Do let me try if I can find an example." Then, after thinking a few moments, she exclaimed with exultation, as if she had made a great discovery, "Look at those sheep, Mamma. They are feeding in the field. Here is a box of sugar plums. May I taste them?" "See, Mamma, what a number of nouns I have made the pronouns stand for. All the sheep and all of the sugar plums." "But the sheep and the sugar plums make only two nouns, my dear." "What do you mean, Mamma? Don't you see how many sheep there are in that field? And then the whole box is full of sugar plums?" "All the sheep," replied her mother, "are sheep, and sheep is one noun, or one name for those animals we see feeding. Then all of the sugar plums in the box is one noun also, and in the multiplication table, I believe, Mary, that twice one are two." Mary laughed, and her mother continued, "Now the lady and the little girl are two different sort of nouns." "Yes," said Mary, "they are not just alike as the sheep are and the sugar plums are. But cannot one pronoun stand for a great many different sorts of nouns?" "Certainly. Look at the nosegay I gathered this morning. There are roses, jasmine, pinks, carnations, and a variety of other flowers. They smell very sweet, and their colors are very bright. Her mother then gave her a piece of cake and told her she might go and play in the garden, as her lesson was now over. "How nice it is," said Mary, tasting the cake. Then she cried out, "Oh, Mamma, I have found out a pronoun all alone, not a pronoun that stands for a great many nouns, but only for one single noun, not for a person, nor a place, but a thing. You may guess it, Mamma." And she laid a slight stress upon the word it to help her mother to guess right. "It," replied her mother. Mary laughed and thought her mother was very clever to guess right so easily. She then ran on with a string of examples. "Here is my book. Shall I put it by? And where is my bonnet? I must put it on. And my tippet? I must fetch it." So it stands for everything that is not a person or an animal. "It is often used for animals also," said her mother, "especially for small ones. Look at that bird, how fast it flies, and that caterpillar, how slow it crawls." The Bee, a fable from Pignotti. The next morning when Mary brought her grammar, her mother said, "No, my dear, we shall not go on any further today. I will read you a little story, and you shall afterwards look out for all the nouns and pronouns in it. That is called parsing." "Oh, how I shall like that," said Mary. "A story, and nouns and pronouns too. How funny it will be to find them out! It will require more painstaking than you perhaps are aware of. But for now, the story. There once was a little girl. "Girl," said Mary, "that is a noun." And what did the little girl do? She was playing alone in a pretty garden. She was very young, and ran over to the bed of flowers and rolled on the grass, filling her hands with daisies. "What a number of nouns and pronouns, too," said Mary, half to herself. "But go on, Mamma. I will not interrupt you again." "All at once," continued her mother, "the little child, as she was lying on the grass, heard a buzzing noise over her head and looked up and saw a large yellow and purple bee. The sun shone upon its wings and made them shine bright as gold, and she thought it was the most beautiful insect she had ever seen. The bee whirled round and round her several times, as if at play, and every time it approached her, she stretched out her little hand to catch it. But it was all in vain, and at length the bee flew far away. The little girl got upon her feet as fast as she could and ran after the bee, which flew about above her reach until it was weary, and then it settled to rest on a beautiful full-blown rose. When the child saw it remained quiet, she went up to the rose bush as gently as possible, treading softly on tiptoe, and when she came within reach, she suddenly stretched out her hand and grasped hold of the bee and the rose together. The bee, angry at being thus disturbed, thrust out its sharp sting and pierced through the skin of the poor little hand that held it. The wounded child screamed with pain, and the mother, hearing her cries, ran to her assistance. She took the sting out of her hand, bathed it with arquebusade, and when the child was a little recovered from the pain and fright, her mother said, "My dear child, do not seize hold of everything that looks pretty, without knowing what it is, for there are many pretty things that would hurt you. Mary was so much taken up with the child's suffering that she quite forgot the nouns and pronouns, and when the story was ended, her mother desired her to read it over attentively and to find out the nouns and pronouns it contained. Mary made out above 30 nouns and nearly as many pronouns, but she did not go through the whole story at once. Her mamma divided it into 3 parts, and Mary did it at 3 different times, which made it easier for her.